Hi, friends, and welcome back to Behind the Bloom podcast. I'm J Schwanke, and this week's episode is a very special companion to Season 1, Episode 103 of Life in Bloom, The Romance of Flowers. In that episode, I visited a beautiful rose grower in California, enjoyed a flower-inspired cocktail hour, and shared so many wonderful stories about the timeless romance that flowers bring into our lives. It was such fun to revisit this episode, and today I'm excited to take you behind the scenes and share even more from that journey. So let's dive right in here on Behind the Bloom podcast.
All right, welcome back, Jay. Nice to see you.
Hi, RJ. Good to see you as well.
Yeah, I'm excited. Half of these episodes that we're doing are these companion episodes where we go back and rewatch episodes from your show. And so this is one of our companion episodes, and this is for episode 103 from your first season, The Romance of Flowers. So I'm excited for this one.
And interestingly enough, this was one of the two shows that we pitched to public television.
Oh, okay.
When we were just getting started and saying, is this worthwhile? So it was episode 1 and episode 3 were the two. And so in our first season, the season was edited by Elise at WKAR. But these two the first episode and this episode were edited by Chris.
Oh.
And so he had edited them. And then when we went with WKAR for distribution, then Elise created those other episodes, and then season 2, Chris started editing all the shows. So yeah.
So they used Chris's original edits for these, and then just had
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that was good, and it was a challenge to try and figure out. Because one of our deals is that we want to make the show evergreen. In the flower industry, there are many things that people talk about. They talk about weddings, they talk about funerals. Those are two really hot buttons. They talk about trends in flowers, and they talk about holidays. So when we were sitting down, it was like, I want to do one about romance, but I don't want to do one about weddings. And I think that romance is inclusive to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was also part of why this one ended up in that direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was a great place to start for the first season. I mean, romance,
absolutely.
Like what you're describing right now is totally, I totally get it.
It's all inclusive. And, I am a firm believer in love who you want to love, and everybody should be able to love who they want to love.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. And flowers are the perfect accessory for love,
Yes.
So exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then you started with the rose, then the most romantic flower of them all, as you call it, which is true.
Well, and also the national flower of America. Isn't that? That's an interesting thing too, right? And I think that, everybody wants to know what a rose means too. And it's really, we created a product many, many years ago for the John Henry. I created it for the John Henry Company called the Floral Fan Deck. And it was 8 decks of cards that were each was a color value. Okay, So there was an orange peach one, there was a red one, there was a fuchsia one, there was a fuchsia and pink one, there was a lavender and purple one, and it listed all the flowers that were in there, and then it listed all their meanings. One of the most frequent things people say to me is like, what does that rose color mean? What does that mean? Is what does red rose mean? What does yellow rose mean? And it's interesting because there's so many books now. There's a plethora of things that you can find about what you want and what you're going to do. And so you can find, one of the things I always remember was people used to say that yellow roses meant jealousy. Okay. And that was one of the very first things. But yellow roses are a wonderful flower. So they also can mean goodbye. There's a lot of different meanings for flowers.
Okay.
And so it doesn't always have to be like hydrangeas. Hydrangeas mean deceit. That's like the number one thing. Isn't that, so that's kind of bizarre. And
Right.
so I've noticed over the years, though, we did that project probably 15 years ago, maybe, that, now there's different things that different things mean. But but I wanted to put that meaning thing in there because I think that the meaning part of flowers, so we go through all the different ones and we have the different meanings for those. And I think that it's a great reference tool for people too. And, people used to send messages with flower bouquets, and they would send them, like a man might send them to a woman, and then the woman would make a bouquet in response with different meanings and send back to him.
Oh, cool.
And so they would communicate through that too. There's a great book called The Language of Flowers, which is probably the oldest archived piece from the Victorian era that talks about those meanings. So I think
Oh,
that that's kind of a fun thing.
cool.
That's a pretty great thing.
Yeah, I love that you included that in the episode. It was fun to just, like, hear everything, and I don't know, everyone should go
Yeah.
back and watch that just to, like, get each one because it was fun.
Right.
I was, like, writing them down as I was watching because I was like, "Oh, this is so cool."
Yeah, yeah, it's true,
Yeah.
and I think that, it also helped us spawn that, the featured flower episode. Because in the featured flower episode, we also try and tell every week what that featured flower might mean, and this is kinda where that became part of it. I mean, we'd already done it with Protea before, and in the first one, we did it with Gerber daisies, so, it starts to build on itself, and I think that, that's always the case of learning as you go along, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
what people like and what they don't like, so yeah.
Oh, and then, so you went to, in California, went to Eufloria Flowers to visit Chad Nelson, so I was curious how you know Chad and
So, it's so interesting. I was at a show in St. Louis, Missouri, and there was this booth set up, and this guy was showing off his roses. And I went over to them and I was like, "These are the prettiest roses I've ever seen." And they were just all so unusual. And Euphoria Flowers is a boutique grower, so that's their claim to fame. They don't put in a lot of one type of rose, but they put in many different varieties. And they're always searching for ones that have fragrance. They're always searching for ones that are particular colors. They do spray roses as well as standard tea roses. And so in that show that day, I said, make sure you go over and look at these roses because these are the prettiest roses on the planet. And that tagline stuck.
oh,
And even at their farmers markets, they do like 17 different farmers markets in California. And they have my quote on the big banner, and it says, "The prettiest roses on the planet, J Schwanke, J Schwanke's Life in Bloom." It says that on their banners.
oh,
And so then Chad would take me and ultimately took me and Kelly as well to Amsterdam to go to the rose breeders where we could see these roses that were being pitched, and you get to learn about their production value, how many roses they produce per square meter, how many petals are on the rose, how long the rose lasts, and they would decide what they were going to bring over and what they were going to start
oh,
in their boutique rosary. And so then we traveled one time out there to their farm to create some ads for them and create some pictures.
oh, cool.
And that was the first flower farm in California that I went to. And the
Really?
first flower farm probably really that I recall as a kid, even, you
Oh,
know? And so when we went there, and I was like, it's so cool here. It's just, this is such an experience that I think people need to see this.
yeah.
And that visit to Euphoria spawned the California Grown Experience, which then spawned J Schwanke's Life in Bloom and going
Oh,
to flower farms and doing that. So that's where Chad was in on the ground floor. And Chad is from South Dakota originally. So I'm from
okay.
Nebraska. And so Chad and I hit it off, and his mother-in-law worked for a wholesaler in Greenleaf Wholesale in the United States. So I also got to meet her then. And then his wife is wonderful. She's a chef, and I don't know what she does now. They have 4 kids? I think they have 4 kids. 4 kids, something like that. They're all adult. I mean, they're getting to be adults now, so the kids are all past. But Chad and I would travel all over this country and share his roses.
Oh, cool.
And so I was a spokesperson for them for a long, long, long time. And I believe that episode, in this episode, we picked up that from our third California Grown Experience because this talked about their romantic collection of roses. And this was more garden style of roses that had that big, open, voluptuous look. And I think in this one, we also introduce a rose that's named after his daughter.
Oh.
And so, they always have my dream is to have a flower named after me, just so in case anyone's listening. I just think that would be a great thing.
Make it happen. Speak it into existence.
Yeah, tell it to happen.
Yeah.
But I think it's wonderful because the people on his farm treated the roses with such respect. it's the Koch family, and Chad's really not part of that family, but he is now because he's been there for so long. But then, the people who work there are also a family. And so they had a friend of ours, Lily, and I don't know if Lily's in this episode, but I think she's in a different one. But then it was Lily's family that was there, and so Lily would kind of manage all of her family. But they were the harvesters, they were the graders, they were the people who packed it, they were the people who did who sprayed things, and did all that. And that farm used uh, integrated pest management. So they would release like Priscillus in there to eat the aphids and eat those other things, so that they weren't using that. They would use apple cider vinegar to deter powdery mildew. So they do a lot of things that are also very eco-friendly. So that's how I know Chad. And we still keep in touch too. It was very interesting. During the pandemic, Chad sent me a note and he said, I think we're going to close.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, Chad. And he was like, yeah, I just think it's going to be too hard. And I was just like, okay. And so I said, I'm going to write a love letter to Eufloria Flowers. And so I have a blog. It's still on my blog at ubloom.com. But I wrote a letter that was a love letter, in that it was the first place I ever went, and it spawned so many things for me. And it was taking them to trade shows. It was going to Europe with them and looking at the new varieties. It was going to their farmers markets and seeing those things. It was all these wonderful things that Eufloria Flowers had done for not only for me but for people in our industry. Chad, I put it out and it got picked up on LinkedIn and it got spread all around the industry. And Chad was just like, "We're not going to close." This changed. Andy read this and it changed his mind, and we're still in it. And they remained in the industry, and they're still, and it's so interesting because, like, when we're in California, we try to go to farmers markets and they will be there. They also have one in they go to the Hollywood market every week. And they have there's a bunch of movie stars that
Oh, cool.
buy their flowers. But like Barry Manilow loves their roses, and
Oh,
Ben Affleck loves their roses, and there's all these people that come and buy their roses and come to
cool.
the market come to the farmers market just to do that. And so that's a cool thing too. But yeah,
Oh,
it was just a fitting thing. I think Chad's just always, he's you know Chad's a very somber guy. He's very quiet and under, and just is not, and I'm the exciting guy. So, like when we would be in Amsterdam together, it would be like, oh, let's go do this. And Chad would be like, all right, let's go here and let's go to the there's a place called the Old Sailor that we would always go to. And,
oh,
I just still think about that, is that it was a really, really fun part of our lives. And yeah, he's a good guy. Chad's a great guy.
cool. Jay, one of my favorite things about doing this podcast with you is hearing like all the relationships that you have with all of these people that are guests on your show. It's like you're so tied in with the community, and it's like, on the show you get a sense that you know these people, and we get a little bit of it, but hearing the backstory of all this is just so cool to hear. So I just wanted to say that.
I'm really fortunate because one of the things that I want, I watch these shows. And I'm mesmerized when I can watch Lydia and Jacques Pepin cook together. That's two superstars. But it was very important for me to have my friends be guests on the show, and normal everyday people. And we get letters all the time from people who say, I love that your guests are just normal people. And I like that's transpired, and that's the way that people see it, because I think that it's really hard. Now, Mo was a really interesting choice for me because I was reading Mo's book. Mo Stein is going to be on our show, Get Outside. And I was reading her book, and I could tell from our correspondence that I should not talk to her before she got on set. Not call
Okay.
her or anything. So we only emailed because I didn't want to say too much stuff to her. And I
Okay.
wanted to find out more stuff in person. So sometimes that happens too. But
Okay.
it's for the most part, people who are guests are friends already. So yeah,
Oh, I love that.
sure.
So I wanted to talk about too then the Flower for Romance segment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just talking about like you got into fragrance, a lot of like gardenias and freesia. And the fragrance is such an important part of a flower, and it was fun to hear you talk about that and how that's important for the romance part as well.
I think that a fragrance evokes memory. And it's already tied to that. So when you smell something, and whether it's a pie or a dish that you make, or whether it's whenever somebody lights a cigarette in front of me and that first puff off of the cigarette, that smell reminds me of my grandfather, because my grandfather smoked six or yeah, 3 packs of Camel No Filters every day. And so I know that smell. That smell reminds me of it. Kelly's mom wore a cologne that when I smell it, I think of his mom. And I think that same thing happens. And I think that we're not, so much of the rose breeding has taken the fragrance out of the roses. And that's for a very good purpose, is that the less thorns a rose has, the less fragrance it will have.
Huh.
The less thorns and the less fragrance it has, the longer the rose will last.
Oh.
And so a fragrant rose will not last as long as a non-fragrant rose. So there's a duality there with people who are breeding roses to figure out how to make those things happen. And obviously, for someone who's creating something, you want less thorns, because it's easier to work with. And there are some roses, I swear to you, that smell amazing, but they have thorns on their thorns.
Oh.
There are so many thorns. There are thousands of thorns on one stem. I mean, there
gosh.
are big thorns with thorns on them. And you're just like, what in the world? But it smells good.
Smells good.
But, so that rose fragrance, I think, is so uncanny for being linked to romance. I love gardenias. I love the fragrance of gardenias. I have a friend who I bought a plant for the yard. It's called Amy. Yeah, the variety of the gardenia is called Amy, and it's got 3 buds on it, so I'm hoping it's going to bloom. But I love the smell of gardenias. And there's a company called High Camp Floral Supply that sells gardenias, stemmed gardenias, which is what we featured in this show too. We showed them on the stem and stuff like that. And it was my friend Robert Kitayama who discovered that. But I love that fragrance. And so I was telling this guy the other day who told me that Amy would be a good variety for me. And I was writing him, his name's Mike. And he now calls me Gardenia J, because we used to call my grandpa Carnation Joe, and he's like, what do we call you? And so he calls me Gardenia J. So I like that. That's nice. And then our featured flower for this episode was freesia, right?
The freesia, yeah.
Yeah, so freesia, I love freesia. We used to grow it in our greenhouses, and when you would, in the spring, that would be one of the first things that would grow and bloom. And so when you would walk into the greenhouse, you would smell these freesia, and they smell like Fruit Loops. That's the best description I can give you. And certain varieties, yellow and the brown or rust ones, are the ones that really smell like Fruit Loops. The white ones have a tendency to smell a little more cinnamony or clovey, but it is an incredible fragrance. And there's a really interesting trick with freesia. So when you buy freesia and you buy a bunch of freesia and you bring it home, don't cut it.
Oh, no?
Just put it directly into the vase with flower food water and everything. Cold water is great. But freesia have the highest sensitivity for uptake of water. And so when you cut it, it has a really strong vascular system. It's going to suck that water up, and it's going to release ethylene that's going to kill the first blossom. And so if you even let them get calloused over and you put them in a vase, if you don't cut them, every single bloom will open all the way to the end. I prefer Chrysler Professional 3. That is what I would put them in, is Chrysler Professional 3, and you will have them open all the way to the end. And so you're going to get 10 or 15 blooms on that, and every single one is going to be fragrant, because that flower food being in there also is helping feed that plant and allowing it to open up. Because it's harder for a plant to open up, but it's what I love about Chrysler Professional 3 is that it makes every flower more fragrant. It makes it have a higher color. It makes the bloom itself get bigger. It keeps all the green foliage green so that you don't have yellow foliage. It's miraculous. It's my favorite flower food. And so you can get it at chrysalflowerfood.com. And we talk about that a lot, but that is the thing to do with those freesia or with the gardenias or with the roses, because then you're going to get them to open all the way to the center. And that's just part of it. I mean, I think that part of the romance of those flowers is them unfurling, but then also when they die, I think that that's important too. I mean, it's just Just
Part of the
important.
cycle.
Yeah, part of the cycle. Part of the cycle.
And can you spell Kreisel too, just for people
Sure.
there?
CHRYSAL, flowerfood.com.
Okay.
And you're looking for professional 3.
Okay.
The other one that's very valuable for freesia is their bulb food. So then anything that comes from a bulb or corum, it has a higher sugar content, and it again will help make those blooms get bigger. Make sure that those blooms get bigger, make sure that the color's more vibrant, make sure that everything is good. So yeah.
Awesome.
Support the joy of flowers. The Life in Bloom Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to flower education and inspiring a love of flowers in everyone. The foundation helps fund the production of J Schwanke's Life in Bloom on public television, making it possible for viewers across the country to enjoy the beauty and benefits of flowers. The foundation also provides free flower education to high schools, colleges, and floriculture programs through ubloom.com, helping students and future florists bloom in their own careers. Your donation in any amount makes a difference. Plus, all contributions are 100% tax deductible. If you'd like to help us continue sharing the power of flowers, visit the lifeinbloomfoundation.org to donate today. Thank you for your support.
I also, Jay, just wanted to say there was kind of a little sequence in this episode with the freesia where you just kind of had these different like facts about freesia, and there was like a montage to music, and it was people kind of working in the flower fields, and it was just a very like
Cutting the
soothing.
freesia.
Yeah, I just loved watching that, and it just had all these little kind of like pop-ups. It reminded me a little bit. Do you remember like VH1 pop-up video? This was
I
like a
do.
this
I
was like a
do.
more relaxing,
Oh,
informative pop-up video that was
sure.
I loved that segment. So I just wanted to call that out.
And that was when we were still because in that episode we also put the things about them on the screen, didn't we?
Yeah,
At the
exactly.
bottom.
That's
Okay.
what yeah.
And so we also provide our show to other countries.
Oh, okay.
And so when you do that, you have to translate everything,
Oh, interesting.
including the stuff on the screen. And so you will notice in later segments, in later episodes of the show, we try not to put as much stuff on the screen because you have to take it down and translate it.
Yeah,
And it makes it harder to get it available for other countries.
I gotcha.
And
Okay.
so, yeah, but we didn't know that. We didn't know that back then. And we thought it was easier. So now we try and do almost everything we can in a voiceover because
Okay.
then the voiceover's transcribed automatically and then that helps. But yeah, in that one we put them on
It
the
was cool.
screen. Yeah.
Maybe
And
that's why pop-up video doesn't exist too. They were it was a lot of
who
work.
knows, right? Right. The other thing about that I think it's interesting is so many people grew freesia and not very many people grow freesia anymore. And that farm that
Oh.
used to grow freesia is now gone. That was
Oh.
Holland America, and they closed their doors. They're closing in October of this year,
Oh no.
but they used to grow freesia, and it just became freesia is a very easy crop to grow, but it's really hard to maintain
Oh, okay.
and cut. And so you'll notice that in those pictures when their guys are cutting it, you only see a little bit of color on the first bloom. And that's because they want to ship it and have it get to its location and then open up. So like
Oh.
if you would ever see a freesia field or a lily field in bloom, it'd be a really bad thing because that means that they didn't cut them and there's no way to ship them.
Okay.
So that's kind of the thing that happens with the freesia as well as the lilies. So it's
Okay.
important to know. But yeah.
And so then we also met Chef Jenna in this. So yeah,
Right.
she was great. Yeah.
Chef Jenna is such a trip. And so people who live in Grand Rapids, Michigan know her. She has a charity called Food Hugs where they go into restaurants and they tip heavily. Like
Uh-oh.
they go into a restaurant that is where people are doing a really great job, having really amazing food, and then they like tip the waitress $1,000
Oh, cool.
and to help them or help them find a car or do some stuff like that. And her restaurant Amore is just it's a staple, and it has been voted, I don't know, 10 years running maybe best Italian restaurant in Grand Rapids. Jenna is not Italian, but her husband is Mauricio is Italian, and he's amazing. And
Oh.
so she learned all of her cooking from Mauricio's mother, who taught her how to cook when they went to live with them in Italy, and Jenna couldn't speak English The mother couldn't speak Italian. The mother couldn't speak English, so they communicated by cooking food.
Oh, how cool. Oh,
And the food speaks for itself. It's amazing. So
oh.
yeah.
Did you actually shoot a little segment in her restaurant? I feel like
Yeah.
there was a little cutaway. Okay, all right.
A
Cool.
little part of us getting pizza there.
Cool.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She, just for people who care, she doesn't make pizza anymore at a restaurant.
Okay.
She did away with pizza. She doesn't have the pizza ovens anymore, and so she does, but she still makes amazing stuff. But
Oh.
yeah. But I loved her pizzas. Her pizzas were delicious. So yeah. So then we made the rose cello.
Well, I think it was a rose spritzer, but you talked about the rose cello in the episode that you had made before, which was in your
Correct.
book, I believe, the rose cello?
Right. So in Fun with Flowers, I gave her recipe, and she was on our show long before that. She was on our show on Bloom long before that. I made a giant arrangement of Italian produce and added flowers to it, and she was there. And then she had made the rose cello because I had given her organic roses to make it with. And so the rose cello is really super simple. You start with vodka and you add rose petals, but they need to be fragrant rose petals and they need to be organic. And so we would grow them on our garden roses in the yard. And Kelly has many roses in the yard that he babies along, and they don't have any pesticides on them, so we can use them to create something like that. And so you let the rose petals sit in there for 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
It makes the vodka taste like rose. It gives it such a great color. I mean, in that you saw in this show that it gives it a wonderful ruby color, and those were like a pink color that we were dealing with. I know I say this in the show, but it's true. It tastes how roses smell.
Oh, cool.
And so it is and it is true that these guys, the Italian guys, would sneak off for coffee, and then the women would get out the rose cello and have a little sip in the house while the guys were all away for coffee. And the guys are probably having, they're putting something in their coffee too, I'm sure. I'm sure that's going on too. But that was a fun part, and having her in the house. And it is interesting in the outtakes, it talks about that was when the dogs used to go away.
Oh, okay.
Because we were shooting in the kitchen. 9 people in the kitchen is a lot.
Oh, yeah.
The dogs would have just been underfoot. And so the dogs used to go away when we did that. But yeah, so then Jenna was in the kitchen, and we had the rose spritzer. I like that we make a joke about that we're home alone.
Yeah,
because,
that was funny.
We're home alone with 9 other people that you can't see who are all behind the scenes, So yeah, she wore that flower crown very well. She also won our Flower Power Challenge, which I think is in an upcoming episode too. So I think you get to see that as well. So.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I recognize that kitchen too. That's your kitchen in season 1. So
correct.
That's where we had lunch. So
correct. When you were, I saw in your notes, you're like, yeah, that is the kitchen. And it's so wonderful to have Kathy's kitchen and go to Kathy's kitchen, which is the one you see now, which is the all white one. And when we used to have to be in our kitchen, I had to clean the whole thing.
Oh,
that's the biggest part about it, is I'd have to clean it because I'm a big bacon guy. I use a lot of grease. I use a lot of olive oil. I use a lot of stuff. So everything in my kitchen, I'm sure, has a little coating of food on it. And so I would always have to clean it. And I was always just like, oh, this is just taking forever to clean everything. And I would even hire people. My makeup girl, Amy Vredevoogd, for a while, I would hire her to come and help me clean the kitchen first so that we could go in there. So yeah, I don't necessarily miss filming in my home with my crew.
Okay.
Inside the house. Inside the house. Great. Outside, yeah, no problem. Yeah. Inside is a lot. It's a lot to have people in the house.
And so you also did a recipe in Bloom, the lavender shortbread cookies.
Yeah, we still make those, and we really love them. And it's helpful in a time-sensitive way. Because you can make the dough ahead of time. You can have it in the fridge. You can even hold it in the fridge and slice off a couple pieces at a time if you want to do that. It's a really easy recipe to take care of. And the fact that it has fresh lavender in it is amazing as well. And there's lemon zest in it, and I just like them. They're a good lemon. It's great. And so if you are a member, a subscribing member to ubloom.com, and you have our full subscription, which is $7.99 a month, all of the recipes from the show are on PDFs that you can download and create your own collection.
Oh, cool.
And so that's for people who subscribe. And Kelly has made these beautiful PDFs for each one of the recipes. If you're not a subscriber and you don't do the subscription, you can also go to my my blog, and they're in there as well. They're just not
Oh,
pretty and not in something that you could print out and have be like a pretty little card that you could have a little collection of everything. But the the PDFs are beautiful for those people who are subscribing members to UBloom as well. It's a little benefit that we give to those people. So
oh,
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Cool, Jay. And then before we wrap it up, there was one flower tip that you had just at the end of the episode that I thought was really cool. Is just keeping flowers away from a fruit bowl. And so I had never thought of this before. And I just thought it was a cool thing. I was like, oh, this totally makes sense.
Okay, so flowers, when they are in a closed area with fruit or vegetables, the ethylene that the fruit or vegetables gives off, which makes the flowers, which makes the fruit or vegetables ripen, is bad for flowers. So I love to tell the story. When the Dole Fruit Company, decided they were going to get in the flower business, they had these trucks that were coming out of Florida that they would put tomatoes that weren't quite ripe in, and then they pump ethylene through that as those tomatoes travel on that truck to different parts of the country. Okay. So it could be up to 4 or 5 days. And that ethylene is circulating in there and it's ripening that fruit. It's natural. They do it with apples. They do it with all kinds of different types of fruits and vegetables. So then they thought, well, we're going to be in the flower business. We've already got this cooler truck that's taking those tomatoes up there. We'll just stick our flowers in that truck too and send it along with it. And we're going to save money and have them in there. Gets to the destination. All the flowers are dead
Oh my gosh.
because ethylene is so detrimental to flowers. And so we always keep track of that. And so like if you're in a flower shop, you're never allowed to put your lunch in the cooler, okay? Because you don't want that ethylene. And there are actually things called ethylene eaters, which
Mhm.
are like this big pad that goes in a cooler and it sucks the air through it and it eats the ethylene as it goes through there to make sure that the flowers last longer. So I always say if you can smell rotting foliage or old flowers, there is a smell that goes with that. That's what ethylene smells like.
Oh, okay.
And so keeping your fruit away from them. Now, the other thing that people have got me on is like in another episode, I do an arrangement with flowers and I use lemons in it. And they were like, well, I thought we're not supposed to do that. If it's in a room where the air is circulating, it isn't nearly as detrimental as if it's a closed space. So, like if you would put a flower arrangement in your fridge and you have, fruit and vegetables in there, that closed space is going to recirculate that air and that's going to cause a detrimental effect to your flowers. So
Okay.
it's super important too for like flowers to wear and things like that. So when people are doing weddings, if you're doing a wedding yourself or doing a DIY wedding, having those flowers in your refrigerator could be detrimental and you probably need to find a different place. One of my favorite tricks. Here's a really easy way to make a cooler thing that will hold your flowers. So if you have boutonnieres or my flower crowns, this is what I do with my flower crowns. I have a cut flower box. I line it with a plastic bag, and then I put those little, those little square freezer things that you get inside stuff
Mhm.
that is a coolant, right?
Mhm.
So those are all frozen in my freezer outside. So I take those, I line the box bottom, and then I put another piece of plastic in, and then I put my flower crowns or any other types of flowers in there, close the box, and it forms a cooler inside that box, and it's good for about 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
And you can, if you wanted it to go longer, you could also replace those guys because those guys will the little cooling things. I don't know, they're called like a gel ice or
They're like
something like that.
ice packs
Ice
almost, but it's
packs,
like
yeah,
a yeah.
yeah. And
Okay.
so when they thaw, then you'd have to replace them again. But it's a really, really great way to do that rather than sticking them inside your refrigerator where you may have fruits or vegetables in the drawers below.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
So it's a good way. But yeah, so keep them away. That's interesting because we started to do the little tips that way as a little separate B-roll thing. And I don't know that that kind of goes away later on. We started doing it where we bring out a little bottom third thing that says Bloom 365 tip. And so it alerts you to the fact that what you're hearing on screen right now is a tip so that we didn't have so many pieces and parts that went into the shows so that we could incorporate those tips actually when I'm making something.
Oh, cool. Cool.
The romance of flowers. And in this one, you see all parts of our house. So, I mean, there's stuff that was shot in the bedroom. There was stuff, the little heart-shaped rose heart, the little a little solid rose heart that's in there was on like the settee in the bedroom and stuff like that. So there's different parts of the house that were involved. Is this the one that has the bathtub in it?
I actually had a question about that. Yeah.
The jacuzzi tub in the bathroom is in there, and we have rose petals in it. So yes, what's your question?
My question was there were certain states that you told me that had problems with things that were suggestive. When we talked about the eating mangoes naked at one point,
correct. Yes.
Did they have a problem with the bathtub?
No, but I'm sure if there was a person in it, they would have. So just the fact that we had just the rose petals in there was fine.
Okay.
Was fine. But I'm sure if there was a person in it,
that probably
they would not have been happy about that.
Okay.
So yeah. And I mean, I think that rose petals, the thing to remember about putting rose petals in water is try and get organic ones again, because there are pesticides that are used on some roses. So putting rose petals, if they're not rose petals that have been sold to you as being organic or pesticide free, you might want to rinse them off first before placing them in your bath water if you're going to be in your bath water with rose petals. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Don't forget the champagne. There was a champagne glass, I think, on the thing. So yeah,
yes.
Champagne's a go-to around here. So I mean, so that's good. So yeah, champagne and rose petals in your bath is a good idea.
Oh, I love that.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, Jay.
Thank you so much. Thanks for reviewing this. And remember that this episode will be on YouTube as well as the show. So both of those will be together on YouTube. And then you can also view them on the PBS app. You can view them on pbs.org. You can also view them at YouTube, ubloom.com. So anytime you want to do that, those are always available. And you can watch those on demand there. They're always free on PBS Passport too. So you can watch them there and download them. Watch the episode along with our commentary, our color commentary.
Well, now there's so much behind the scenes. Yeah,
exactly.
People are going to see that bathtub and be like, "Oh, now I know."
Exactly. Yeah. I love our jacuzzi bathtub is inside our shower.
Oh, nice.
So it's almost like a little room inside there. So there's the jacuzzi tub is inside with the shower, and so yeah, it was when we did a bathroom upgrade. So it's a nice place. I like the jacuzzi's always very important for a little soak when we're having those crazy filmings that you came to see. So yeah.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I bet you need to relax after.
A good soak with lavender is really important. So there's that.
I bet.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks, RJ. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
All right. Take care. Thanks for joining us this week on Behind the Bloom podcast with J Schwanke and RJ Poole. If you loved what you heard, be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And share it with a friend to help us spread the joy, one bloom at a time. Thank you for taking the time to slow down with us. And hopefully you left feeling a little lighter and inspired to try something new. Make sure to join us next week for a brand new episode. Thanks for being here with us, Behind the Bloom. Hey, just one more thing. If you love flowers, you've got to check out ubloom.com. It's the online home of J Schwanke's Life in Bloom, where you can stream every episode for free. Plus, you'll find Behind the Bloom videos, my blog, show recipes, and so much more. There's also a massive video archive, over 1,800 how-to videos, flower farm documentaries, and even my very first series, JTV. All Life in Bloom episodes, exclusive web content, and farm documentaries are totally free. Just sign up with your email. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there's a paid subscription option that unlocks the full library of how-to videos. Everything from creating bridal bouquets to centerpieces, corsages, and more. Tons of content to explore. You're gonna love it.